I never imagined that love could feel heavy. Not at first. Not when Henry and I were young, reckless, and so sure of each other. Back then, before the shadows started creeping in, I truly believed I had found the man who would protect my heart, not bruise it. My name is Isabella, and I live in a small, quiet town in Maplewood, a place where everyone knows everyone, and every porch light feels familiar. Henry and I rent a small house on a shared property, 4 little homes lined up like a row of memories. Ours is the second one. Oscar, the neighbor who's old enough to be my father, lives in the third. I've always been light. That's the best way I can describe myself. I like people. I like smiles. I like stories told over fences, laughter shared at random, and the warmth of simple conversations. And maybe that was always my mistake, or maybe it was his. Because Henry never saw my kindness the way others did. He never saw my friendliness as a part of who I am. To him, every smile was a threat, every conversation a betrayal waiting to happen. He never said it in those exact words, but he didn't have to. His silence, his stares, his tension, they spoke louder than anything he could have said. On the outside, Henry is the kind of man people trust, hardworking, quiet, serious, the type who keeps his commitments and rarely complains. But behind the closed door of our little home, there was something else, something sharper, something that slowly chipped away at the version of him I fell in love with. It didn't start suddenly. It began in whispers, small comments, small doubts, small storms. A question here, an insinuation there, a tightening of his jaw when I talked with someone too long, a lingering stare when I returned from errands that took more time than they should. At first, I brushed it off. People get insecure sometimes. People get jealous. People have bad days. But with Henry, those days grew more frequent, more intense, more suffocating. And I didn't realize how deeply it was sinking into our lives until the afternoon that changed everything. But that's a story for another chapter. What matters here, in this beginning, is the truth I kept refusing to admit. The man I loved was slowly becoming someone I didn't recognize. Every morning, I tried to hold on to hope. I'd cook breakfast, open the curtains, and pretend the world was as bright as the sunlight falling on our kitchen counter. I convinced myself that love was meant to hurt sometimes, that the ache in my chest was just a phase, a test, something couples simply go through. But deep down, even then, I knew something was wrong. I wanted a marriage where trust lived between 2 people, not suspicion. I wanted a partner who believed in me, not someone who questioned my every move. I wanted love that felt like home, not love that felt like a cage slowly tightening around me. Still, I stayed. Still, I tried. Still, I kept choosing him. Because love makes us blind. Because love convinces us to hope. Because love whispers that the person hurting us is just hurting too. And at that point, I truly thought that if I just loved Henry a little harder, if I just dimmed myself a little more, if I just swallowed my laughter, my friendships, my generosity, maybe he would finally feel secure. Maybe he would stop seeing enemies where there were none. Maybe he would stop seeing danger in the way I simply exist. I didn't know then how much darker things would get, how much smaller I would become, how much of myself I would lose trying to prove I wasn't the woman he imagined in his fears. But it all started here, in this quiet town, in that little rented house, with a man I loved more than myself, and a love that was beginning to show its first cracks, a love that slowly, painfully, was starting to hurt. It was a little after 4 in the afternoon, one of those slow, warm days in Maplewood when the sun lingers longer than it should, stretching time just enough to make you believe nothing bad could ever happen. I was outside, leaning against the low fence that divided our yard from the neighbors, talking with Oscar. He's an older man, gentle, the kind that tells stories with his whole body, hands waving, eyes widening, laughter spilling out without shame. Oscar could have been my father. Honestly, he could have been my grandfather. We were talking about something silly that had happened with his sister. Harmless, light. The kind of conversation that makes you forget the weight you carry at home. I was laughing, really laughing, for the first time that entire week. My shoulders felt loose, my heart felt calm. For a moment, I felt like myself again. And that's when I heard the sound of the gate. It groaned the way it always did when someone pushed it open, but this time, something inside me tightened. Because Henry never came home at that hour. Never. He always got back after 6. So when I turned and saw him standing there, jaw clenched, shoulders rigid, eyes narrowed, my stomach dropped. I knew that look. God, I knew it too well. He didn't greet me. He didn't greet Oscar. He just walked past us like a storm wearing the shape of a man. The change of atmosphere was immediate. Oscar fell quiet. I fell quiet. Even the air felt embarrassed. Henry didn't yell. He didn't need to. The way he looked at me, as if I were guilty of something before he even asked a question, was enough to shame me into silence. Shame for something I didn't do. Shame for simply existing the way I always had. I tried to finish the conversation gently, not wanting to make things worse. I told Oscar we'd talk later, forced a smile, wished him a good afternoon. But even turning away from him felt wrong, like I was walking into a trap I couldn't escape. When I stepped inside the house, Henry was already waiting, arms crossed, eyes dark, breath shallow in that way he had when he was about to explode. "Isabella," he said, his voice low but sharp enough to cut. "I need to talk to you." I didn't even get the chance to sit down before the accusations began. He pointed a finger at me. God, I hated when he did that, and asked, "So this is what you do while I'm out working?" "What are you talking about?" I said. "I was just talking to Oscar. Nothing more." But he didn't hear me, or maybe he refused to. He raised his voice, pacing, insisting that Oscar was taking advantage, that I was giving him signals, that he had seen the way we looked at each other. All lies. All fantasies created in the darkest corners of his mind. I tried to explain, tried to stay calm, but every word I said only fed the fire. His voice grew louder, mine grew smaller. He claimed he knew exactly what men like Oscar wanted. He said he'd lose his mind one of these days if I kept provocando, provoking him. Provoking. Imagine calling a woman provocative for smiling at a neighbor old enough to have gray hair in every memory he ever lived. The worst part wasn't the yelling. It wasn't the accusations. It wasn't even the injustice. It was the way he made me doubt myself. Was I too friendly? Was my laugh too loud? Did my kindness invite danger? Was I the problem? I hated that he had the power to twist my truth like that, and I hated even more that this wasn't the first time. And deep down, I knew it wouldn't be the last. That afternoon was supposed to be nothing, a simple, warm, ordinary day. But it became the moment I finally realized that Henry's jealousy wasn't a phase. It wasn't insecurity. It wasn't love twisted the wrong way. It was something darker, something dangerous, something that was slowly erasing me. And as the sun set behind the houses on our little street, I stood in our living room, listening to him accuse me of things I had never done, understanding, maybe for the first time, that the man I loved was becoming a stranger I would one day fear. There's a particular kind of pain that comes from being accused of something you never even imagined doing. It's not a sharp pain. It's not loud. It doesn't explode like anger or sting like betrayal. It's quieter, more subtle, like a soft bruise forming underneath the skin of your soul. After that afternoon with Oscar, the atmosphere in our home shifted into something heavy, something suffocating. I could feel it in the silence between meals, in the way Henry watched me from across the room, in the way he stood a little too long in doorways as if he were trying to catch me doing something wrong. The smallest things became evidence in his twisted narrative. If I smiled at the mailman, he noticed. If I laughed too loudly at something on TV, he noticed. If I stood outside for a moment longer than usual, he noticed. And noticing always turned into questioning. It always started the same way, calm, controlled, almost gentle. Isabella, why did you look at him like that? Isabella, who were you talking to on the porch? Isabella, why did you take so long at the store? Questions that weren't really questions at all. They were accusations disguised as curiosity. I tried to keep my composure. I tried to explain myself. But every explanation sounded to him like a lie. One evening, he sat on the edge of the bed, arms crossed, staring at the floor as if the truth were hidden somewhere in the cracks of the wooden planks. "You think I'm stupid, don't you?" he said. I blinked, confused. "What? Henry, no. Of course not." He lifted his head slowly, and the look in his eyes chilled me. A mixture of fear, rage, and something I still don't know how to name. "You think I don't see it," he continued. "The way you act, the way men look at you. You think I don't notice how you light up around people?" I felt my chest tighten. "Henry, that's just who I am. I've always been like that." He shook his head, bitter. "No. That's how you want people to see you. That's how you get attention. You enjoy it, don't you? You like being noticed." His words stabbed deeper than any scream could, because he wasn't attacking what I did. He was attacking who I am, my friendliness, my warmth, my openness, the things that made me feel like myself. He twisted them into flaws, into sins, into invitations for betrayal. I tried to defend myself, but how do you defend the very essence of who you are? He paced the room, running his hands through his hair, breathing heavily. "I'm not stupid, Isabella. Men don't talk to women like that unless they want something. And women don't laugh like that unless they're encouraging it." I felt something break inside me then, not loud, not dramatic, just a small, painful crack in the place where trust used to live. He took my silence as guilt. He always did. He stepped closer. Too close. "Tell me the truth," he whispered, his voice trembling with a desperation that scared me. "Have you ever, even once, thought about someone else?" The question hit me like a punch. "No," I whispered. "Never. I love you. I chose you." But the moment the words left my lips, I realized something terrifying. I wasn't saying them because they were true. I was saying them because I needed him to believe them, because in that moment, it felt like my safety depended on it. He turned away, shaking his head, muttering under his breath, trapped in a world of suspicions only he could see. And I stood there frozen, staring at the man I had once trusted, wondering when his insecurities had become stronger than our love. I went to the kitchen afterward just to breathe, but even from there I could hear him pacing, replaying the same thoughts over and over, feeding the same monster that kept growing inside him. Jealousy, fear, control, possession, all of it disguised as love. But the worst part, the part that haunts me still, is how his accusations slowly began to change the way I saw myself. I started speaking less, laughing less, going outside less, not because I agreed with him, but because every time I tried to be myself, it turned into another fight. Henry didn't just doubt my actions, he doubted my character, my loyalty, my dignity. His words didn't just hurt, they reshaped me. They carved out pieces of my joy, my spontaneity, my freedom, until I became quieter, smaller, more cautious, like a flame trying desperately not to attract attention for fear of being blamed for burning. Those accusations cut deeper than any wound I had ever known. And in the silence of that pain, a heartbreaking realization began to form. Love shouldn't feel like this. Love shouldn't make you afraid of your own nature. Love shouldn't require you to shrink. But at that time, I wasn't ready to accept that truth. Not yet. That acceptance would come later, after wounds much deeper than these. But this was the chapter where the cuts began. Some moments in life don't explode. They don't arrive with screams or shattered glass. They come quietly, soft, subtle, slipping under your skin until the truth hits you with a coldness that takes your breath away. That's how I felt the day I learned Henry had been watching me. It was a calm afternoon in Maplewood. I had just finished washing the dishes after lunch, letting the scent of soap and warm water soften the chaos inside my mind. The house was still, the kind of stillness that usually comforts me. But not that day. That day it felt like a warning. I heard someone calling from outside. A gentle, familiar voice. It was Janet, our neighbor from the first house on the property. A kind woman in her late 60s, always ready with a plate of cookies or a piece of unsolicited advice. She had known Henry for years and had known me since the day I moved in. I invited her in for coffee, as I always did. But something was different. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Her hands fidgeted around the coffee cup. She kept clearing her throat like she was rehearsing words she didn't want to say. "Isabella," she began softly, "there's something I've been needing to tell you." I felt the air shift. She hesitated, her gaze drifting to the window, as if afraid someone might be listening. "Henry came to talk to me last week," she finally said. I froze. Henry didn't talk to neighbors. He barely spoke to anyone unless he had to. For him to approach Janet, of all people, meant something was wrong. Very wrong. "What did he want?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. She sighed, and then she told me. "He asked me to keep an eye on you." I felt my heart drop so violently that it hurt. "On me?" I repeated, confused, horrified, embarrassed all at the same time. She nodded slowly. "He wanted me to watch who went into your house, who you talked to, especially if Oscar was around. He said he was worried." Worried. That was the word she used. But the look in her eyes told me she knew it wasn't worry. It was something darker. My cheeks burned with humiliation. Hot, suffocating humiliation. Janet leaned closer, lowering her voice to a whisper. "Isabella, forgive me for asking, but are you doing something you shouldn't be doing? I always thought you were such a decent girl." That question, that doubt, coming from someone who barely knew me beyond polite greetings and borrowed sugar, it was too much. I felt a sharp, bitter sting rise in my chest, not because she questioned me, but because my own husband had created the doubt, because the man I loved had dragged my dignity through the mud in front of strangers, because he had reduced me to a woman who had to defend her reputation in her own kitchen. I could barely breathe. I managed to force out the words, "No, Janet, I've done nothing wrong." But she already looked uncertain. The poison had already spread. By the time she left, I felt shattered. My hands trembled, my throat tightened. My heart ached in a way I had never experienced before. I felt violated, watched, judged, reduced to a suspect in my own home. I kept imagining Henry standing with Janet at her doorway, whispering to her, asking her to spy on me like I was some criminal. The same man who once promised to protect me from the world had turned me into a prisoner inside it. When Henry came home that evening, I confronted him. And he didn't deny it. In fact, he acted like he had done nothing wrong. "I'm just taking care of what's mine," he said, as if my autonomy were an object he owned. As if loving me gave him the right to patrol my every breath. I felt something break between us at that moment. Not a clean break, not something sharp or sudden. It was slow, internal, like a thread snapping inside my chest. This wasn't jealousy. This wasn't insecurity. This wasn't love twisted out of shape. This was control. This was obsession. This was a man losing himself to his own darkness. And I realized, with a pain that hollowed me out. If he could ask someone to watch me once, he could do it again. He could go further. He could drag me deeper into a life I no longer recognized. That day, in my tiny kitchen with cooling coffee on the counter, I understood something I had been too afraid to admit. Henry didn't just distrust the world, he distrusted me. And for the first time, I began to wonder if our love had already turned into something I might not survive. I don't remember the exact moment the fight began. Maybe it started hours earlier, simmering beneath the surface, waiting for a spark. Or maybe it began days before, when Janet told me the truth about Henry watching me. But what I do remember, what I can never forget, is the moment everything inside me finally snapped. By the time Henry came home that evening, my emotions were a tangled storm. Humiliation, anger, sadness, exhaustion. I had replayed Janet's words 1,000 times in my mind. He asked me to keep an eye on you. It echoed like a taunt, like a betrayal dressed in concern. When Henry walked through the door, he didn't sense the tension. Or maybe he did and didn't care. He dropped his keys on the counter, loosened his boots, and sat at the table like it was any other evening. But nothing about that moment was normal. I stood across from him, arms crossed, trying to hold myself together. "Henry," I said, my voice trembling with controlled fury, "we need to talk." He barely looked at me. About what? I felt my stomach twist. Not because he didn't know, but because he did know, and he wanted me to be the one to open the wound. I took a breath. "About what you asked Janet to do." That made him look up. There was no guilt in his eyes, no embarrassment, only annoyance, like I had interrupted a peaceful evening with something trivial. "What about it?" he asked, leaning back in his chair. The casual tone, the carelessness, ignited something in me. "How could you do that?" I asked. "How could you ask someone to spy on me, to watch who goes in and out of my house?" He frowned. "I wasn't spying. I was making sure nothing was happening while I wasn't home." My heart dropped. "Nothing is happening, Henry," I shouted. "There has never been anything, and you made me look like a woman who can't be trusted. You made me look guilty to our neighbors, to people who don't even know me." He slammed his hand on the table, making me flinch. "I'm protecting what's mine." His words sliced through me. "I'm not something you own," I said, my voice breaking. "I'm your wife, Henry, not your property, not your prisoner." His jaw tightened. "You don't understand, Isabella. Men look at you, they see how you act, laughing, smiling with everyone, and they think they have a chance." "And whose fault is that?" I asked, tears burning behind my eyes. "Mine? For being kind? For not walking around like a ghost? For having a personality?" He stood up suddenly, the chair scraping loudly across the floor. The sound was violent, sharp, like the moment itself. "You're too friendly," he spit out. "Too open. You give people ideas." I couldn't hold it in any longer. "And you give me misery," I cried. The silence that followed was suffocating, heavy, poisonous. I saw something shift in his expression. Something ugly, something wounded, something desperate. And it scared me. Because I realized then that no matter what I did, no matter how much I tried, I could never fix the storm inside him. I turned toward the bedroom. "I'm done arguing," I said. "I'm going to pack my things." He followed me down the hallway, his voice rising, cracking under the pressure of his own fear. "You're overreacting," he said. "You're being dramatic." I ignored him, pulling my suitcase out from under the bed. My hands shook as I threw clothes inside, shirts, jeans, anything I could grab. Every piece I packed felt like a piece of my heart tearing away. "You're not leaving," he said behind me, voice firm. "I am," I said. "I can't live like this anymore." He stepped forward, blocking the doorway, his presence filling the room with tension. Stop. Think. You're angry. You don't mean this. I zipped the suitcase shut. I've never meant anything more. For a moment, he didn't move. He just stared at me, breathing hard, eyes clouded with something I didn't understand. Then, the moment that still haunts me, his face twisted with panic. Isabella, please. His voice cracked. I'm sorry, okay? I can't lose you. I shook my head. You're not losing me. You're pushing me away. He reached out, placed his hand on the doorframe above me, as if trying to hold the world together with his bare hands. You don't understand what you do to me, he whispered. You make me crazy. I shouldn't make you anything, I said. Love isn't supposed to feel like this. He swallowed hard. Please, just don't go. I'll talk to Janet. I'll fix this. My body softened, not because he convinced me, but because I was tired. So tired. I closed my eyes, exhaling a breath I didn't know I was holding. He stepped closer, lowering his head. I love you, he whispered. You know that, right? Did I? Did love look like this? Fear, suspicion, humiliation? But I stayed. Not because he changed, not because he deserved it, but because I wasn't ready to unlove him yet. The fight that almost broke us for good ended the same way so many others did, with promises, apologies, and a fragile, desperate hope that maybe this time he meant it. There is a moment, an unmistakable, disarming moment, when a man who has been cruel suddenly breaks. When his voice trembles, when his eyes soften, when the anger drains out of him and is replaced by fear. And no matter how much he's hurt you, no matter how many wounds he's left on your heart, something inside you responds. Because when a man who always pretends to be strong finally falls apart, it is almost impossible not to reach out and hold the pieces. That's what happened with Henry. When I stood by the door with my suitcase, ready to leave, ready to choose myself for the first time in months, he completely unraveled. Not in anger this time, not in pride, but in something raw, trembling, desperate. He grabbed the door before I could open it, his hand slamming against it with a force powered entirely by fear. Isabella, don't. His voice cracked in a way I had never heard before. He wasn't commanding me. He wasn't accusing me. He wasn't questioning me. He was begging. That was the part that destroyed me. The same man who had humiliated me, controlled me, monitored me through neighbors, now stood in front of me, trembling like a child, afraid of being abandoned. I should have walked away. I should have kept my hand on the suitcase handle and pushed through. I should have chosen my dignity over his panic. But love, real or imagined, is a force that blurs lines. He stepped closer, his eyes glassy, his breath unsteady. I say stupid things when I'm angry, he whispered. You know I do, but I don't mean them. I swear, Isabella, I don't mean them. I didn't answer. My silence made his fear grow. He gently wrapped his fingers around my wrist, not tight, not forceful, just enough to keep me in place. Don't leave me, he murmured. Please, you're all I have. Those words hit a place inside me I didn't want to acknowledge, a place that remembered our early days, a place that believed I could still save him, a place that confused pity with forgiveness. He leaned in, lowering his forehead until it almost touched mine. I'll talk to Janet. I'll fix it. I'll tell her I was joking. I'll take it back. I'll do whatever you want. Just don't walk out that door. I shook my head slowly, fighting a storm of emotions. You shouldn't have done it in the first place, Henry, I whispered. I'm not your enemy. His voice broke into something between a sob and a breath. I know you're not. I'm scared, Isabella. I'm scared of losing you. And there it was, the confession that had kept me trapped for so long. Fear, not mine, his. Fear disguised as love. Fear disguised as protection. Fear disguised as jealousy. He cupped my face with trembling hands. It was the softest he had touched me in months. You're the only good thing in my life, he said. I mess up. I know I do. But you can't give up on me. I closed my eyes, feeling the raw honesty in his voice cut through my anger in ways I didn't want it to. Because this was the Henry I used to know. This vulnerability, this softness, this man who could love fiercely when he wasn't drowning in his own demons. And that was my weakness, not my kindness, not my innocence, not my desire to make things work. My weakness was believing that I could heal him, that I could soothe the wounds inside him that I didn't create, that I could love him enough to compensate for the love he couldn't give himself. Slowly, painfully, I let go of the suitcase handle. His eyes widened with hope. Come back to the room, he whispered. Please. And I did. Not because I forgave him, not because I believed him, but because I was tired. Tired of fighting, tired of hurting, tired of carrying the weight of a love that felt heavier each day. We sat on the edge of the bed, the room dim and silent, except for the sound of our uneven breathing. He wrapped his arms around me, pulling me close like he feared I might vanish if he loosened his grip. I'll be better, he murmured into my hair. I'll change, I swear it. I wanted to believe him so badly that it hurt. I wanted to cling to the man he could be, not the man he was. I wanted his promises to be more than temporary escapes from guilt. So I let his embrace soften me. I let his words quiet my anger. I let his trembling hands convince me that maybe, just maybe, change was possible. But deep inside, a whisper lingered. A quiet truth I wasn't ready to face. Desperation can sound a lot like love, but only one of them lasts. And as I rested my head against his chest, listening to the frantic rhythm of his heartbeat, I felt something I couldn't yet name. The future wasn't going to change just because he promised it would. And the storm inside him wasn't over. It was only pausing. For a little while, things felt lighter. Not perfect, not healed, but lighter, like stepping out of a storm and feeling the first fragile rays of sun warming your skin. After that night, after Henry's desperation, his trembling voice, his promises whispered against my hair, there was a shift. Temporary, but real enough to make me stay. He became softer, more careful, almost gentle. He woke up earlier to make coffee. He asked about my day. He held my hand while we watched television, as if afraid I might slip away again. He didn't question every move, every glance, every smile. For the first time in a long time, I breathed without fear of being misunderstood. And part of me, the part that still clung desperately to hope, wished that this gentleness could last forever. But deep down, I already knew the truth. Calm with Henry was not a destination. It was an intermission, a pause before the next storm. Still, I allowed myself to enjoy the quiet while it lasted. I remember one morning in particular. I was sitting on the porch, watering the small flowers that lined the front steps, and Henry came outside carrying 2 mugs. He looked peaceful, almost youthful, like the Henry I used to know. He handed me a mug and said, "It's a new flavor, thought you might like it." Something so simple, but it melted something inside me. "Thank you," I said quietly. He smiled, an actual smile, not a forced one, and sat beside me. The breeze was soft, the sun warm, the neighborhood quiet. For a moment, it felt like maybe we were normal. Maybe we were healing. But peace built on apologies and fear is fragile. And I could feel it, subtly, quietly, beginning to crack. The first sign came a few days later. I was coming back from the grocery store, arms full of bags, when Henry asked, almost casually, "Why did it take so long?" 4 days earlier, that question would have had knives hidden behind it. Now it seemed harmless, gentle even. But something in the tone, something in the familiar edge behind the softness, made my stomach tighten. I answered calmly. There was a long line. He nodded, accepted the answer, didn't push further. But the seed had been planted. The storm was shifting again, and once Henry's doubts started creeping in, they never stopped. They grew quietly at first. Small comments, small questions, small silences that lasted a little too long. He began watching me again, not openly like before, but in small ways. In the way he'd pause when I laughed at a message on my phone. In the way he'd glance through the window when I stepped outside. In the way his eyes tracked any man who walked by, even if that man didn't glance in my direction. His love felt like walking barefoot over broken glass. You learn how to step carefully, but you still bleed. The turning point came one afternoon when Oscar, dear old Oscar, called out a simple greeting from his porch. "Good afternoon, Isabella." I waved back politely. A smile, nothing more. But when I stepped inside the house, Henry's eyes were dark again. "You couldn't just ignore him, could you?" he asked quietly. A chill ran through me. "What are you talking about?" I said. He shrugged, but his jaw was tight. "I'm just saying, you didn't have to smile like that." Like that. The words echoed painfully in my chest. I realized then that no matter how many times he apologized, no matter how many promises he made, Henry's demons were always waiting, lurking beneath the surface, ready to claw their way back the moment they sensed weakness. The calm was never the new normal. It was the eye of the hurricane. And we were already moving back into the winds. That night, as he slept beside me, peaceful and unaware of the warfare happening inside my heart, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. I wanted to believe he could change. I wanted to believe the calm would last. I wanted to believe love was enough. But the truth sat heavy on my chest. I was losing myself, piece by piece, day by day, and no amount of calm, no matter how warm, no matter how sweet, could undo the damage Henry carried inside him, or the damage he had already done to me. The calm wasn't a gift, it was a warning, a reminder, a whisper from the depths of my spirit saying, "Brace yourself, it's coming again." And in the quiet darkness of that night, I felt that the next storm would be stronger. And I wasn't sure if I still had the strength to survive it. There is a particular kind of loneliness that only exists inside a relationship. A silence so heavy it presses against your ribs from the inside. A sadness so deep it feels like you're drowning with your eyes open. That was the loneliness I lived with, not the solitude of being physically alone. No, that kind of quiet can be peaceful. This was different. This was the constant ache of being unseen, misunderstood, suspected, and still loving the person who caused it. By the time the calm between Henry and me began to fade again, I could already feel the familiar tightening around my heart. Every question he asked, every suspicious glance, every shift in his tone, it all felt like another stone added to a backpack I had been carrying for far too long. And I was getting tired, so tired. I had spent months, years really, trying to be less friendly, less open, less talkative, less myself. I tried to shrink into a quieter version of who I used to be, as if dimming my light would calm the storms inside him. as if becoming smaller would make him feel bigger, as if burying my joy would plant flowers in his insecurities. But no matter how small I made myself, no matter how cautious, no matter how silent, it was never enough. Henry's distrust was a hungry thing, growing even when I starved it of reasons. It didn't matter that I stayed home. It didn't matter that I stopped chatting with neighbors. It didn't matter that I watched every word before it left my mouth, terrified of being misunderstood. He always found something to question, something to doubt, something to twist. One evening, I sat on the couch folding laundry when he asked casually, "Who were you talking to earlier?" I blinked. "Earlier? When?" He shrugged. "I heard you laughing outside." I searched my memory. It took a moment before I realized what he meant. "Oh," I said slowly. "I was talking to Mrs. Parker. She dropped off a bag of tomatoes from her garden." His expression darkened, just slightly, but enough for me to feel it in the pit of my stomach. "And what was so funny?" he asked. Funny. God, this is what my life had become, explaining why a moment of laughter existed. I forced a smile, trying to hide the sting. "She told me her cat figured out how to open her refrigerator. That's all." He didn't answer. He didn't smile. He just stared at the folded shirts in my lap like they were evidence in some silent trial. These weren't fights. They weren't arguments. They were wounds, small cuts, paper-thin slices of doubt that accumulated until the weight of them felt like 1,000 invisible scars. I felt myself changing. I stopped laughing out loud. I stopped going outside unless necessary. I stopped accepting small joys from the world, knowing each one might cost me peace later. I stopped existing freely. One night, after another quiet interrogation disguised as conversation, I went to the bathroom, locked the door, and stared at myself in the mirror. My reflection felt distant, like a version of me frozen in time, watching another woman slowly disappear. My eyes weren't as bright. My shoulders slumped forward. My smile, when it came, looked strained, practiced, exhausted. I whispered to myself, "What happened to you?" But I already knew. Love happened. Or something that pretended to be love until it became something else. Something heavy, suffocating, relentless. Henry didn't trust me. Not with other men, not with neighbors, not with strangers, not even with myself. He didn't trust the way I laughed. He didn't trust the way I greeted people. He didn't trust the way I moved through the world. He didn't trust my heart, even though it beat only for him. And the weight of that, the weight of being questioned, doubted, monitored, analyzed, it was a weight my spirit wasn't meant to carry. I remember lying awake in bed one night, Henry asleep beside me, his breathing deep and even. I stared at the ceiling in the dark, feeling tears slip gently down the side of my face. I wasn't crying because I didn't love him. I was crying because I did. Because love shouldn't feel like this. Because trust shouldn't be begged for. Because no woman should have to prove her innocence every day in her own home. But that was my reality. The weight of a love without trust was a weight I carried alone, quietly, invisibly, painfully. And as much as I tried to convince myself otherwise, a small voice inside me whispered, night after night, "One day, this weight will crush you if you don't let go." A voice I was finally beginning to hear. There comes a point in every breaking story, a precise, devastating moment, when the truth becomes louder than all the excuses you've told yourself. A moment when the heart finally admits what the mind has whispered for far too long. For me, that moment didn't arrive with shouting or slammed doors. It came quietly, almost gently, like a soft knock on the inside of my chest, a whisper saying, "You cannot keep living like this." It happened late one evening. Henry had fallen asleep after another tense day, filled with subtle accusations, nothing explosive, nothing dramatic, just the usual drip of doubt that slowly hollowed out my spirit. I lay on my back, staring into the darkness, listening to his breathing beside me, deep, rhythmic, peaceful. He always slept peacefully. I never did. Because while he slept, I lay awake carrying the weight of his fears, his suspicions, his anger, carrying the burden of making sure nothing I did or said or even felt could be twisted into something he could use against me. My heart was tired. My bones were tired. My soul was tired. As I stared into the ceiling, my mind drifted back through the months and years behind us. I remembered the woman I used to be, and the woman I had become. Before Henry's jealousy grew fangs, I was bright, laughing loudly, speaking easily, feeling safe in my own skin. I was someone who loved life, who loved connection, who loved being alive in the world. Now, I hardly recognized myself. I measured my smiles. I censored my thoughts. I monitored my movements like a prisoner afraid of triggering alarms. Every day, I carried the fear of being misunderstood, of being accused, of being punished for crimes I never committed. And as I lay there in the dark, the truth hit me with a clarity that left me breathless. Love is not enough. It's not enough to fix a man who refuses to fix himself. It's not enough to heal wounds that weren't yours to carry. It's not enough to make someone trust you when they cling to their insecurities tighter than they cling to you. Love alone cannot hold a marriage where one person is drowning and the other is expected to be the lifeguard, the raft, and the ocean all at once. I turned my head slightly, watching Henry's silhouette in the faint streetlight spilling through the blinds. The man I fell in love with was still there somewhere, deep inside the layers of anger, fear, and control. I still saw glimpses of him in the soft moments, in the apologies, in the rare tenderness that appeared after every storm. But I realized something heartbreaking. I was no longer in love with who he had become. I was in love with the memory of who he used to be. And memories aren't foundations. They're shadows. I swallowed hard, my throat tight. That's when the question came. The question that would change everything. If I stay, will there be anything left of me? The silence that answered was more painful than any argument we'd ever had. Because deep down, I already knew the answer. I was disappearing. Slowly, quietly, tragically, piece by piece, inch by inch, day by day. The woman who once filled rooms with laughter now lived in a world where even a smile felt dangerous. The woman who once embraced life now existed only in the spaces where Henry allowed her to breathe. And I understood then, truly understood, that love should never cost you yourself. Tears rose to my eyes, but I didn't cry. Not loudly, not dramatically. Just soft tears slipping into my hairline, invisible in the dark. I wasn't mourning Henry. I was mourning me, the version of me that I had sacrificed in the name of love. The version of me that deserved more than fear, more than doubt, more than constantly having to defend my innocence. The version of me that was slowly dying inside this house. And as Henry slept beside me, trusting my silence but not my loyalty, I felt a deep, painful shift inside my chest. Not anger, not rebellion, just truth. Love without trust is not love. Love with fear is not love. Love that costs you your identity is not love. Not the kind that heals. Not the kind that lasts. Not the kind that saves anyone. I finally understood that staying wasn't saving us. It was destroying me. And in that quiet, dark, fragile moment, I finally whispered to myself something I had never allowed myself to say aloud. I deserve better than this. It didn't mean I stopped loving him. It meant I finally started loving myself. And that, I think, was the moment everything began to change. If this story resonated with you, don't leave without supporting the channel. Like the video, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your voice matters here. Thank you for being with me today. See you in the next video, where another truth waits to be revealed.